Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So in this tutorial, we're going to continue with our C++ series that we began earlier. So if you haven't watched this series from the beginning and you want to refer to the beginning of this series, you can just refer to this playlist of this Introduction to C++ for Beginners series. So if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel and you're new to this channel, well, my name is Prince, and I kindly ask you to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up because in this channel you're really going to be learning really great things, so just do that for me. So let's begin by talking about what an array is. So an array is just a collection. It's just an whenever you have a collection of elements and you want to store it in a single variable, you use an array. So that's what an array is. An array can be just a collection of different elements where each element can be uniquely identified by something known as indexes. So we'll look at indexes in detail later on, but one thing that you're also supposed to know about arrays is that they can only contain elements of the same data type. Okay, so for example, you can create an array that will store integers only, an array that can store characters only, and so on. So that's what an array basically is in C++. This may not be the case if you're coming from other programming languages like Python, where you can store integers, characters, strings, and all of them in one array. But this in C++ is different. You can only store one specific data type elements within an array. So let me just show you what an array looks like. You can imagine what an array looks like. So think of an array just like a box, a long box having different subdivisions, and each subdivisions holds certain data. So we use something known as indexes to access those specific points, right? Specific data. So for example, we want to access 30, right? So we use the index 0. So if I use the index 0, we are going to be able to access the subsection holding the value 30. Index 1 will be able to access the subsection holding index the value 40, and so on. So we start counting from 0, just like other programming languages, the same concept in C++. So this is known as zero-based indexing. So we start indexes start from 0 and go on like that. Okay, so we can use the indexes to access different parts of the data within an array. So we'll look more into depth on this when we go into code, and it will be much clearer there. So let's look at how we can declare arrays. So to declare an array, we just have to specify a data type. So if the data type determines the data type of the elements that will be stored inside of the array. So if you create an array with data type of strings, of a character, then you can only store characters within that array. If you create an array of data type integer, you can only store integers in that specific array. So you have to specify the data type and then an identifier of your choice, and then you have to specify the array size. Okay, so the size of the array is going to be fixed. Once you specify the size of the array, you can't alter it. Okay, so if you specify the array size to be 10, then the value, the place in memory that to be allocated for this array is going to be 10, and it's going to be a continuous space in memory, and it's going to have the size that will be able to store the amount of the amount of elements, which is the size that you have provided to that array. So if I create an array that have the size of 3, then I can only store 3 elements in that specific array. If I create an array that have a size of 4, I can store only 4 specific elements in that array, and you can't alter that data, the size of the array later on. Maybe you have to create a new array and then copy the stuff in there. Now that's a bit complex. They're called dynamic arrays, that you won't look into that. So let's deal with static arrays. Okay, so as I said, once you create the arrays, you can't change their size, and so they also is not compulsory to provide the size. If you just provide the amount of elements, then the size will automatically be assigned to the actual number of elements there. So if you create an array and you didn't specify the size of the array, but you specify 3 elements within the array, then the size of that array will be 3, and you can't alter that. Okay, so let's jump into code, and then you can see this. So I'll quickly include the iOS stream so we can do the input output. So iOS stream, so I can type iOS stream. So this is iOS stream, and then we close that there. So let's declare the standard namespace. So we say using namespace std. Okay, so we have now declared the standard namespace, and then we can go ahead and actually create an array. So we're going to simply create an array to hold integers. So I'll call this my array just arr. Okay, so we have the array which is just called arr. So we can specify the size of the array. We could say 4 elements. So we can just right now we've just declared an array. So right now we have declared an array, and then later on you can assign values to the array. For example, you can say AR1. So at index 0, as we talk about the indexes, so at the first subdivision of this memory, you want to store maybe 20 and then stuff like that. So you can just copy this and repeat it 4 more times, so that we make sure that we have all the elements in there. So this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be just 3, and this you can call this to be 30, this would be 40, and this would be 50. Okay, so now we can go ahead and actually do a cout, and then we can go ARR at index 0, whatever is there, we're going to pull it out, so you can end that line. Okay, so if whenever I go at index 0, whatever value I stored at index 0 was 20, so we'll get 20 back at index 0. So I'll just compile and run my code, and then I'll see what we get. So I'll just bring my terminal this way and make this large so that you guys can see. So you can see we got back 20, and 20 is the value at index 0. So if I change this to index 4, sorry, index 3, we'll get back 50, right? Because the value at index 3 is actually 50. So I'll just bring back this and make it huge, and you can see we got back 50. So that is all there is to arrays. Now one thing you must know, that if the maximum index that you can provide is the size of the array minus 1. Okay, this is the size of the array, so minus 1, that's the maximum index value you can have, because we start counting from 0. So that 0 accounts for this specific behavior of an array indexing. So one way you can also declare initialize an array on the same line is just using the curly braces. Then you can provide in here 20, 30, 40, and 50. Okay, this should also work as before. So now I can just go ahead and actually run this, and we should get back 50. So I'll just bring my terminal this way and make this huge. You can see we got back 50. So that's how we can use the indexing to access different elements within an array. So even if I specify the size of 3, I can later move on down here and say ARR at index 3, and I can assign to it 50. Okay, so that should also work. So if I save this code and run it again, we should get back 50. Okay, so I just bring my terminal this way and show that big. You can see that we got back 50. So that's the way we can work with arrays. Okay, so specifying the size is also not compulsory, so you can specify the number of elements. So in this case, if you do this, you probably get an error, because the size will be just 3, and you're specifying the third index, which is the 4th element. Now that will give you an error. So this should also just be the 2nd index, since the size of the array is 3, and 3 minus 1 is the maximum value of index that you can get. So I run this, we should get back 40. So I'll just bring my terminal this way, and we can just make this huge so that you guys can see we got back 40. That's how you can work with arrays in basically you can work with arrays in Python, in C++. Okay, so now let's write a simple way of how you can loop through different elements within an array. So you can just say for maybe int I equals to 0. Okay, this is 0, while I is less than the size of the array, which will just be 3, and then we can do I plus, and then we can just do cout. We can just print out that index, so just be cout, and then we can say ARR square bracket notation I, which is going to give us the value at that specific index. So I'll just save this, and we'll compile and run this code again. And at this point, you're supposed to get back all the elements that you have stored within the array, and you can see we got back 20, 10, and 40 according to the order in which they are all placed in. So that's how we can use an array a for loop to retrieve the elements within an array. So what if you don't know the size of the elements within an array? So you can just go to this function size of, and provide in your array. This will return to the size of the array divided by the size of each element within an array. So this is size of, and this should just be int. Okay, so what size of does it return to the size of this whole array, right? But now you want to divide it by the number of elements in there, so you can get how many times you want to iterate. So if the size, for example, this is an int, right? An integer is 4 bytes, right? So 4 times 3 is basically 12. So this is 12 bytes. So this will return to us 12 bytes. But 12 divided by 1 divided by one of these element size, which is 12 divided by 4 is 3. So we want to go 3 iterations. So this was equal to me writing 3 previously. So that's how this logic works. So you can just run this and you're supposed to get back the same output. And I'll just bring my terminal this way and make this huge. So that's also one way we can work with arrays in C++, is by using the size of. We'll get the size of the array, and then we can divide it by the number of elements within that array. So even if I specify here character, then this has to be the size of character, and then I'll have to change the elements in here maybe to R. This should be A, and this should be maybe, let's change this to T. Okay, so just basically rat. I don't know why it was rat, but yeah, we'll just go with that for now. I'll just run this, and we're supposed to get back A R A T like this. Okay, so I'll just bring this and make it huge so you can see we got back rat. Okay, so that's all there is to arrays in C++. So in the next row, we'll probably look at multi-dimensional arrays where we have by one array inside of the other array. Okay, so one assignment that I want to leave you with is that you can create a for loop that will actually input elements into an array. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. So if you find it helpful, one way you can support my channel is simply hitting the subscribe button and giving this video a thumbs up. So thanks for watching. See you in the next tutorial.